Hi, I'm Jerry from PressureWasher.net, manufacturer of Sirocco Performance Vacuums and Bulldog Pro pressure washers. I'm going to show you a complete trailer system with dual diesel engines and total reclaim for reuse. What we basically have here is a 8-foot wide trailer with 16-foot length inside box, and we have started with completely waterproofing the floor. We put down half-inch thick rubber mat on the whole floor of the system. We've insulated the walls as much as we can insulate them from the outside, and that's a great starting point for not only insulation for cold weather, but that's a great starting point for keeping a system quiet. The better insulation you have between the floor and the walls, the more quiet you can make a system run. So let's move along. The overhead hose reel system that you see here is, we've got 200 feet of half-inch high-pressure hose on each of these reels here, and a third reel for an additional length of hose. We've got garden hose reel back behind here. What I want to draw your attention to is the way we set up the overhead rack. There's a lot of suspended weight. We've got another hose reel on the left here for soft washing. These hose reels are heavy when you get them loaded up and filled with water. So the idea was to make a super beefy overhead rack. This is 2-inch square tube, and it's suspended all the way to the walls with sandwiching the walls to the outside. There's actually a steel strap on the outside with stainless steel hardware going through the wall and powder coated brackets, triple step powder coated brackets, so nothing gets rusty for a long time. But we also did a vertical brace going all the way up each side of the wall. So this is a very supported structure. We've actually beefed up the structure of the back end of the trailer instead of simply overloading it. So we also have a second rack for the garden hose reel back behind here. So we've distributed the weight a little bit more evenly across the racks, and on the most critical support, we've actually anchored it right to the walls and to the floor. So how you do things makes the biggest difference in the long-term reliability, and this was set up absolutely to live as long as possible. Everything that you're going to see in this trailer is triple step powder coated. It's sandblasted first, it's high temp primed, and then high temp powder coated. So these things are going to look nice for a long time. We use super beefy wiring for the electric rewind on these reels. We don't cut corners on electrical. We want it to last a long time, and bigger wire gets bigger connectors. Bigger connectors means better connections. Better connections mean they never fail. Okay? At the batteries, we got great big fuses. At the control switches, we've got fuses. Everything is set up to be as abusable and reliable as possible. This is bulletproofing, guys. So moving right along, the pressure washer up inside here is a 2.2 liter Kohler KDW series engine with dual pumps underneath. We have the pumps on swing arms, so they're very easy to do belt tensioning, but the only thing we actually have on the pumps are the pressure relief valves. We've moved the pressure regulators for these systems out to the heaters. So over on the heaters, I'll show you in just a minute. The pressure regulators are more easily accessible, and they're away from making you stand on your head when you want to service something. So when you want to tighten the belts on this system, it's a 10-minute adjustment with the swing arms, and there's really nothing else to do that's on the pump systems but maintain the pumps themselves. So we putting this all this horsepower in a small configuration, we did an exterior vent right through the wall, as you can see here, and we put a pusher fan on the engine, so it actually gathers the hot air off the engine, pushes it through the radiator and out the door. We're actually pushing all the heat of this particular engine system out the side wall, so it's much easier to keep this place cool. As you can see over my head, we've got a custom 12-volt fan. We've actually got two of them one on each side here, and they're on a swinging bracket. It's a reinforced rubber hinge on each side, so when you do hit your head on it, it just bounces off. It's not going to hurt you. And these are also smooth edges and triple step powder coated, and you know, we're making this as user friendly as possible. We wanted wide open thoroughfares as much as possible, but we've got to get the heat out of here. So the fans running on 12 volts is and they're high velocity fans. This is efficiency and keeping them up out of the way. Anyway, so back out here to the heaters. We have dual pumps on the pressure washer. They run to individual heaters. On these individual heaters, we have the individual pressure controls with the pressure gauges on the regulators, so you can see what the pumps are really doing. And on this particular system, we're running a 20-inch heater on each one and giving 7 gallons a minute to each side. If these need to be run together for one big 30-inch surface cleaner or something like that, they can be run together, no big deal. And if they need to be completely independent, these systems can actually run independent pressure. We've set a secondary regulator on this system for tile and grout cleaning at 1200 psi. So if one of the guys is cleaning at 4000 psi on concrete, the other guy can be indoors cleaning tile and grout at 1200 psi, all off of the same engine system. These secondary regulators are very cool tools for you guys, because we certainly don't want the user to be messing with the main pressure regulator of the system. They're set for a sweet spot that's a critical adjustment, but we need to be able to have flexibility and multifunctionality in these systems. We want you to have that. We're not afraid of giving you multifunctionality on these systems. The more ways you can use a machine, the more ways you can make money. The more versatility you have on the job site, the better you can make money on that job site before you leave. If you're going to clean a gas station, for example, one guy can be doing the canopies while the other guy's doing the flat work and the islands. Then when the guy doing the canopies is done, he can turn his pressure down, go inside and clean the tile and grout. Who's doing tile and grout with the canopies? I mean, you guys can rewrite your contracts and make more money with the same customers you've got by adding multifunctionality. This is cool stuff. We also put temperature gauges on the heater, so you know what the temperature is. You need to know what the temperature is. Just because you can turn the dial up to 250 doesn't mean you're getting 250. A lot of machines out there, they tell you, oh, it's a 200-degree machine. Well, you get to firing up your 8-gallon-a-minute machine with that 20-inch heater, and it turns out, or 18-inch heater, and it turns out you've only got 165 degrees. Guess what? You know, you need something that tells you the truth, and temperature gauges tell you the truth. Pressure gauges tell you the truth. All right? When you're running long hoses, you've got pressure drop. It's even good to do the testing on your system at the trigger gun with another gauge once in a while, so you know whether you've got a flow restriction. You know, when we sell really good quality hoses, we take them for granted, right? So you hook up to a hose that's 2-3 years old, you're not thinking about that steel fitting rusting away, and that hole inside there that was pretty small to begin with is getting smaller and smaller. Maybe your hose ends themselves have become flow restrictors. It needs to be checked once in a while. If you need to drill them out just to get rid of the rust so you can, you know, use that hose for another 6 months or a year, whatever. Thinking about these things is a little bit easier when you have truth indicators on your system, so you know what your system is doing for performance. Having pressure gauges on the hose reels or the outlet of the heater, you know, same difference, is a pretty convenient tool, and they need to be understood and managed. Anyway, the water feed to this system, if we can go back in here to the pump again, we have dual filters running to each of 2 1.25-inch lines that run into splitters underneath the pump. So we're feeding 1-inch lines to each side of the head. So let me get that straight. So you're running an 1.25-inch line to each 7-gallon-a-minute pump, and still dual feeding that pump is its best chance to live a long time. The pumps are very low to the floor. That makes it easy for them to suck water from a holding tank. We're giving them great big feed lines. They've got separate filters, so we're getting a better dirt load capacity, and of course we're feeding the pumps more easily. And I also want to drag your attention to the garden hose adapters that we have on these filters. What this means is if we shut off the shut-off valve at the bottom of the water tank, then you can pressure feed this system with a garden hose to test for leaks. Not just to feed the machine from a garden hose. Maybe that's cool, so you don't have to fill your water tank for doing a quick little test run. Maybe you're going to clean your own patio or your own driveway, and you don't want to have to fill up the water tank just to do a quick run. Well, being able to feed it with a garden hose or two is a pretty cool tool. And by the way, if you've only got an 8-gallon-a-minute water supply, you only have to turn the engine speed up halfway, and the two pumps are running at a total of 7 gallons a minute. You can run that to one of the heaters and still have your full temperature through one heater without overheating the water in two heaters. There's lots of ways that you can use variable engine control, multiple heaters, and multifunctionality, so that you've got all these options. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to turn the system down so you've got 7 gallons a minute going to one 21-inch surface cleaner for doing a demonstration for a new client with the engine running at half speed? The thing's going to be super quiet. Quieter is better when you're doing a demo for somebody that you want to get a lot of contracts out of. So this is one of the ways of doing it. While we're talking about quiet, this system was set up with secondary silencers on the engines, and I want you to see right here, we've put a extended exhaust line wrapped with a high temperature wrap and going down through the floor to a secondary silencer. This is a really quiet system. We can have this conversation 30 feet from the machine running at full tilt. That's a lot better than having to have no conversation during a demo. They got questions, and now they're listening to a lot of noise, and it's a tongue-in-cheek conversation after you get it shut down. That's not the way a demonstration needs to go. Having a quieter system, like it's a plan, like it's a mission, is setting it up like this. Having a secondary silencer on your engine makes it noticeably quieter. Having a secondary silencer on the vacuum, I'm going to show you that in just a minute here, that makes a big difference too. It makes an exponential difference on a vacuum. So setting these systems up so that they can be quieter, having vibration isolation, check this out. This is sitting on half-inch thick rubber mat. I mentioned that to you before. It's also setting on these big vibration isolators with a piece of rubber mat on top, and this hardware is not squished down tight. This can vibrate up and down so that we have proper vibration isolation from the floor. We're not transferring engine vibration into the floor. There's a lot of trailers out there that are obnoxiously noisy just because the trailer is shaking itself to death. Whoever assembled that trailer should be embarrassed of their work, as far as I'm concerned. We just need to understand what we're doing to come up with answers like this. This is an industry that needs to think. If you're going to grow rich, you need to be thinking about your effect on your environment. Not just keeping control of your wash water, not just having a good positive relationship with your customer, but understanding how to set the system up so it's doing a compelling demonstration. This is a display of character. This guy looks really cool with all the hot rod red and aluminum diamond plate and all this fancy stuff, but the most important thing to me is he understands that he's got things that are serviceable and he's got things that are going to be quieter than his competition, so he can more easily get the contract because he can do the jobs in the middle of the night or whenever he needs to with less complaints to the property management company or whatever. A lot of these gals, they work for these big companies hiring people to do these big contracts. They're not even spending their own money. What they don't want is headaches. They don't want the complaints. Making your system quieter is a big deal, whether you want to address it or not. Let me tell you, the guy that gets the contract might have been just a little bit quieter than yours. Who knows? Just saying, you got to think about stuff like this. Let's talk about that vacuum. This is another Kohler water-cooled diesel engine running a Suter-built blower. This is equivalent to a 30 horsepower gas engine system with this 27 horsepower diesel. We have the blower exhaust going down through the floor into a secondary silencer. Again, we're not putting out any more noise from the blower than we are off of an engine. And everything's been quietized. Here's another insulated exhaust line going down through the floor to another muffler for the engine. This is how to make these things quiet. Wrapping it so nobody can get burned, obviously, is an intelligent idea. This is just planning ahead so your guys can service equipment while it's running, not worrying about burning themselves or catching themselves on sharp edges. Is pretty important. Making things serviceable on the fly is the rapid elimination of downtime. Speaking of the vacuum, while we're in the corner here, I've got sand traps. I've got two 30-gallon sand traps with burlap sack bag filters on the inlets. We've got slide-in filters in there so we can trap a lot of debris before it would even get into the automatic pump-out tanks. There's two automatic pump-out tanks in here with slide-in filters, and those of course have that oilphilic fiber built into them, so we're getting oil-water separation before the pump-out even pumps out. You know, the pump-out doesn't pump out that last 4 or 5 inches of water. Well, that could be floating oil or sticky grease balls stuck to that filter. So there's a lot of filtration before we even get to the pump-out. In this system, because my customer wanted to be able to do parking garages, from the automatic pump outs, after all this sand and silt and debris filtration, then we go into the oil water separator, which happens to be the 100-gallon version, which has a set of 9 bag filters doubled up inside this tank. So up under here, we've got 18 bag filters, doubled sets of 9 filters, and that brings us down to 100 microns. But before the bag filters, we're dropping through what we call our adder tank, which has a set of screen filters. Now, this is going to have oilphilic fibers right on top. So the first thing is that if there's any sticky grease, anything that gets into here from the auto pump out tanks, we're going to go right into something that'll catch that so that our screens aren't sticky. And the screens are graduating from about 1,000 microns, which is like medium-sized sand, down to about 250 microns for the last screen. And they're all cleanable. It's stainless steel screens. They're cleanable. Okay, don't have to replace them. So we're screening the muddy water that comes in from the automatic pump out. We're dropping through bag filters doubled, 150 and also 100 micron bag filters that are cleanable mesh screen. That's helpful, so you can clean them and reuse them for several months. And then it drops into the oilphilic fibers in the bottom of this that we're famous for our oil water separators. It's an extremely efficient method of getting oil out of the water. It allows us to do this 100-gallon clarifier that outperforms every system I've ever seen for configuration. It gives us huge dirt load capacity and oil water separation in a system that has to keep you cleaning. If you're going into a parking garage with 2 guys cleaning with 7 gallons a minute each, maybe park another couple of 5 or 6 gallon a minute pressure washers next to this thing, recycle and reuse all that wash water. You know, this guy can use 330 gallons of water for 2.5, 3 hours and recycle that water before he has to go get more water. Or he can put a water tank in the back of his truck, bring it with, and hook these together and have more recycled water for more hours with all those machines running. From the oil water separator, we pump out there's dual pump outs in the oil water separator. There's actually 2 of them in there, so 25 gallons a minute each can be pushing water through these banks of filters. So I've got actually 2 banks of my white filters, which bring the water down to about 20 microns, and they have huge cleanable cartridge filters. They're the most dense fiber available in water filters, so they don't swell. It's easier to clean these things. And I have customers telling me they're reusing these filters for a year before having to replace them. So that brings us down to 20 microns, and these are 100 square foot capacity elements, and there's 8 of them in this trailer. There's 2 banks of 4. So we've got 800 square feet of cleanable cartridge filter, bringing us down to 20 microns. And a little recap, if everything's cleanable and we're getting all the way down to 20 microns, that sets us extremely apart from all of our competition right there, just having cleanable, so you don't have to be buying filters or putting them in every night. Okay, now the blue filters are 50 square foot capacity elements. Unfortunately, there aren't the really good quality elements available for these, but we're filtering the water really nice and clean down to 20 microns, so that all these elements have to catch is something between 20 and 10 microns. 10 microns is plenty clean enough for protecting the pump system and filtering and keeping a reasonable amount of sludge from building up in your holding tank. And at 10 microns, we're not having to babysit these elements. This guy can clean for hours and hours and hours, like probably all night, depending on how bad the parking garage is, without having to even touch these filters. So that's a lot of dirt load capacity, and that's the intention. You need to be able to go fast. You are in a race against time. Your job might as well be an off-road race. You're in a race against time. The more quickly you get the job done, the more money you're going to make at the end, and any elimination of downtime needs to go really, really fast. So serviceability is king. Not having to babysit things in between, obviously, is the predominant rule. But if you do have to do something on the fly, we want it to be easy. One of the things that we make easy is everything that you see here is on cam locks. The filters are being held down on threaded studs with wing nuts, so it's actually very easy to take these things up and out of here when you need to service them. And having cam locks on those couplings and an easy way of draining these things out is definitely going to make it easier for this guy to take care of his stuff. So we got a lot of automatic pump out in here, and so far you haven't seen a generator. Well, we don't have a generator in here. What we have is a bank of inverters. So we got all these charging systems. We got 45 amps of charging system on each of these diesel engines. We're feeding 2 banks of batteries. There's 2 100 amp hour batteries right here. There's 2 100 amp hour batteries underneath that engine system, because there's plenty of room for them. But that's a total of 400 amp hours of battery capacity, and the pump outs are only turning on intermittently, so our bank of 3 2,000 watt inverters overhead here don't have to work very hard for a living, and the life expectancy is always going to be better on underworked components, especially electrical components. These are on slide out brackets, so it'll be real easy to change one. They have truth indicators on them, so you know what the power level is that you're draining against the inverters. They've got their own circuit breakers, plus we've got major breakers on each of these from the battery source. So those are great big fuses, basically, on the batteries direct. Everything is oversized wire feeding these things. We basically have 4,000 watts of power going to 2,000 watt systems. So we're, by oversizing wire, again, we're giving you abusability and reliability on electrical systems. And all of these connections, by the way, on these batteries, they are soldered, okay? So the connection is crimped, and then it's soldered, and that makes it completely sealed, so any corrosion can't get into the actual connection itself. all the hardware on these batteries and all of the entire system, it's all stainless steel hardware. There's nothing going to rust on here. Plus, using sealed lead acid batteries that don't breathe the fumes that cause that corrosion, this thing's going to look like this for many, many, many years. You're not going to see corrosion on these battery cables. He's not going to have bad connection issues like most people do on their batteries. One of the biggest problems with heater systems is bad battery connections, not feeding them correctly. People complain about 12-volt heaters. Let me tell you something. I got a 12-volt heater out there that's 30 years old, still running strong. Actually, it's 28 years old to be exact. And still running strong on the original igniter. In this industry, that is astronomically a standout. So being someone that is formally trained in bulletproofing for off-road abusability, I can say that I've been successful at making 12-volt heaters extremely reliable. I've been able to make engine systems and starter motors and lighting systems extremely reliable because these things are built with intent to long-term low cost. You've got to bulletproof this stuff to get long-term low cost. While we're standing here, I mentioned water supply to this crazy big pump system here. Well, we've got a nice big beefy feed line coming in from that water supply. There's a float valve, a big float valve inside here, a Hudson type float valve. We've also supplied this particular configuration with a fast fill. What I mean by fast fill, I mean hooking up to a doggone fire hydrant and getting water in this tank in a minute, okay? This is 1.5 inches. I also gave my customer a 2-inch by 1.5 inch adapter, so he can run either a 2-inch hose, fire hose, or 1.5 inch fire hose into this tank, and there's nothing stopping it. There's no float valve. This is a fast fill, get it in the tank and done combination here. So he has the ability to hook up to a regular water supply, go in and have his lunch. The float valve will shut off when the water tank is full, or he can fast fill with the fire hydrant, and when you're trying to get back onto a job site with water supply, that's a pretty cool tool. So just want you to know that planning ahead is how you get things done faster. All right, that's water supply. Moving right along, the other thing that the only wall I haven't shown you in this trailer yet is the soft wash system. We found a water tank that fit exactly perfectly on this guy's wheel well. This is about a 60-gallon water a holding tank, which we're using for bleach. This is a soft washing system with a 12-volt pump, and of course the proportioner from my buddy Paul at the power wash store did a great job setting up a really efficient and simple system and making it easy for us to install this. I mean, look at this space. This is out of the way, it's easy to use, and by the way, we got our water supply from the big water tank over here, but the water supply line comes through the floor. So we've got a real nice open thoroughfare, unrestricted, and the water line comes in underneath the floor from the water tank across the way. So planning ahead is really simple. It allows us to do stuff like this, and having it neat and clean always looks real professional. All the stainless steel, all the hardware that you see in this configuration is all stainless steel. Especially what goes through the wall on the outside, we want it to be stainless steel. You'll see no rust stains dripping down the wall ever on this system. All stainless steel. 12-volt pump, 5 gallons a minute. We've got a pulsation, a surge tank on this, of course, to allow the pressure switch to be relaxed. I also added a 70 amp relay on this booster pump so that the pressure switch is not taking the load of the current of the motor. It's just turning on the relay. The relay's doing the load to the motor. So this pressure switch is going to live forever. The motor's going to live longer. And exactly how hard does that hurt? So real simple, real beefy. We've got 300 feet of soft washing hose, 1/2 inch hose on the hose reel. We've got high volume nozzles and wand on here. We've got a placeholder over here on the floor for either a 5-gallon pail or a 15-gallon drum for the soft washing soap that'll be mixed with the proportioner and the bleach, of course, for soft washing. And there's that other fan I was talking about. So we like to stay cool. We like things to run a long time. Life is good with equipment that's planned well. Here you go. Give us a call at 619-448-8111. Come see us at pressurewasher.net on the website. Come see pressurewasher.net in Facebook and like us, please. And also Sirocco Vacuums in Facebook. Come see us, and we'll take good care of you.